Good afternoon. Thank you so much. I stepped in on some of the sessions that you guys were doing. I cannot believe that we actually sat and talked about solutions to these 5 huge problems. We talked earlier today about what's changed in our world, right? Well, I'm going to quickly take you through what exactly is changing and the impact it has on all of us, and it is impacting every one of us. And why I think now is the time that you will see empires rise and fall. You will see that this is the time where creativity, if you can see the landscape clearly, creativity will allow you to redo, to reinvent your world. So let's go through. This one is the graph, right? We like to think, well, you're looking around here and you can see the matrix is all around us. So that's not by accident. Take the red pill or the blue pill. When you take either of them, if you choose to see the world a particular way, and that is through the lenses of technology, you'll see all of the things that are changing. It's this. It's the fact that we used to live in a linear world where you take a step, that's 1, you take another step, that's 2, another step is 3. But what if we lived in this exponential world that technology actually pushes forward, right? Let me show you first what's at the core of this. At the core of that hockey stick is actually information. Information is what is rippling through. It is what is exploding through our world right now. And it is exploding at such a fast pace. And I want to ask our guys to just cue this video. I want to show you how fast it's exploding. It's exploding at the pace of, you're just talking about the information. Not yet. I want you to think about this before you see the video. Information is exploding at the pace of 6,000 square meters of storage information, just what you store it in, per second. So think 6,000 square meters per second. Okay, what is that? That's the velocity of the ripple of an atomic explosion. Let me show you what that looks like. Now let's show that video and look at the ripple. Go ahead. Let's roll it. See that ripple? That's 6,000 square meters per second. But that explosion only lasted a couple of seconds, right? Now imagine if that explosion goes for decades. Decades, where it's rippling through our society at 6,000 square meters per second. And that's that's at the foundation of this exponential growth. And if you really go down, remember Isabel is talking about coding, what was really at the bottom is the pace of information storage that can be put on a chip. And it is doubling every 2 years. So you have an idea of what that means. It's this. If you're talking exponential growth, right, the chip that doubles every 18 months, if it's 5 days, at 2 to the 5th, it's at 32. If it's 10 days, it's 2 to the 10th. 15 days, 2 to the 15th. And then look, within 30 days, within 1 month, you're over a million. Right? So that is the potential for every person in this room who has an idea, for every person who wants to do something. Rappler couldn't have existed before the time of this exponential growth because we wouldn't have been able to spread as fast. That exponential growth that you're talking about here, the time of disruption that you see here, so in the past, a traditional news group would grow 4% to 10%, and you would think that's amazing. This exponential curve is at about 200 to 300%. This area of disruption is where Rappler is. It's about 100% growth every year. Not possible before this time, right? So that's an interesting thing that is in our industry. Let's talk about the industries that are impacted by that. And this is not science fiction. This is now. Look at drones. Drones used to be so expensive. In 2007, to get a drone, it cost you more than $100,000. Now you can get one. Actually, you can get one now for $500 or less, right? So that's still expensive, but look at the drop in price. That's a 142x exponential growth in 6 years. Let's look at, this is interesting because sensors will make everything you have smart. These sensors, imagine a time when we put a sensor on your t-shirt and your t-shirt will tell you it needs to get washed. That's around the corner. Look at the sensors of the growth of sensors. It used to be in 2009, $20,000. Now in 2014, this is 2 years ago, it was only $79, and it is even cheaper now, but you're talking about 250x in 5 years, exponential growth. These things are here, not in the future, they're here now. Biotech and genetics, we technically can eradicate all genetic disorders. We can get rid of it. All genetic disorders, they're doing it in the lab right now. And if you can do that, you can also, by the way, change the color of the eyes of an embryo. You can also give greater strength to a human being. Human beings are now in a place where they can play God. And what does that mean for us, right? So biotech and genetics, CRISPR technology, which is what you're using for DNA, which is over here, this CRISPR technology is basically free. If our government decided tomorrow to become a genetic center in Southeast Asia, well, that would be interesting because there isn't one yet. This is the time where we can actually leapfrog ahead if we decided to focus. Artificial intelligence, this is already starting to happen. Actually, globally, it's at an insane pace to the point that robots are actually taking the place of human beings. February this year, Barack Obama in the US warned that up to 60% of American jobs could be taken by robots. What does that mean? What does work mean for us? For us Filipinos. Thank you. Check, check. Yay! Okay. You guys ever read the book, Are You There, God? It's me. Sorry. I won't. Why don't we talk? Let's go back to what it is right now, right? So if we really look at this ability to double, exponentially grow every year and a half, every 18 months. This is what you're getting. So I was just telling you that this is not the future, this is now. This robot is built by Hanson Robotics. Hanson is in Hong Kong. The robot is built in China. The robot that is the closest to human being and human sensing, it's being built in China, right? This is happening now. So biotech, genetics, artificial intelligence, and robots, all of that is being used here. These complex types of calculations that we thought only human beings could do are now being done by machines. Look at this one. This is a mall, not outside our country, but right here in the Philippines. And you're going to hear from the young man who actually created this. His company is called Solar Philippines. This is solar energy. It is the first solar energy powered mall here in our country. It is happening now. And if you go by Singularity University, which is a Silicon Valley think tank, they say that solar energy will be free in 15 to 17 years' time. So solar energy will give free energy to all of us in 15 to 17 years' time. Leandro, who you will hear right after, will be more aggressive. It's because he's young and aggressive. So he will tell you the way he sees it. But imagine this. If energy is free, what happens? If you don't have to pay for gasoline, if you don't have to pay for energy, what happens to transportation? If there are self-driving cars, I rode a self-driving car in Singapore. It was an Uber, right? If there's self-driving cars and the energy is free, what happens? It's only a matter of time. Robots energy. It will change everything. So if human beings are now losing their ability to actually do the menial work, actually that's the wrong way. If human beings no longer have to do menial work, what can we be freed up to do, right? If we can create human beings, what does that mean for us? What does that mean for meaning? That's scary and exciting. At the foundation is that every business today is an internet business. Every business, no matter what you do. And here, the breakthrough is if you take whatever business you already have, if you take the business of governance and kick it on the internet, it will grow exponentially. So if that's the case, what happens to growth, right? Well, companies grow large. The market cap to $1 billion, they do it in a shorter period of time. So everything grows faster, which means before, when I was in my 20s, the typical Fortune 500 company would take 20 years to hit $1 billion. Now, see this curve going down? You're actually seeing Oculus Rift in 2012, crowdfunded. This is a company that does virtual reality, right? So it was they crowdfunded $2 million in 2012, and in 2014, they were bought by Facebook for $1 billion. $1 billion. What else does that mean for us? There are a lot other implications. Well, in the next decade, 40% of all S&P 500 companies will disappear from the S&P 500 list. That means companies will grow large fast and they will die fast, right? So now if you see that saying of disrupt yourself or you will be disrupted, this is what will happen. Being big is no longer, you're no longer immune from death if you're big. Here's another one. The lifespan in the 20s used to be 67 years. Companies like General Electric, companies that have been around for 67 years, as of last year, Fortune 500 companies' lifespan is 12 years. Let's talk about jobs. It used to be that we would go to school and you'd go to a 4-year university and you would have all the skills you need in that time period. Well, now, by the time you graduate, you may not have everything you learned in the first part of your education may already be outdated. That's something that's interesting. This is why the young guys here have such great opportunity. Let's look at this one. For me, software is eating the world, right? I like this because if you think about it, a decade ago, telcos, these poor telcos, 90% of their revenues used to come from fixed landlines. Fixed landlines. Does anyone still have a fixed landline now? Do you use your cell phone in your pocket, right? Now imagine if 90% of your revenue was erased, and then here you go with Skype, Line, Viber, the chat apps. Who uses long-distance calls now when you're overseas? I do it online. I do it on Skype. Here's a good one. Photography. Eastman Kodak, a $30 billion company in Rochester, New York. It basically fueled Rochester, New York. It went bankrupt it owned all the patents for digital photography. And that same year it went bankrupt was the same year that Facebook bought Instagram for $1.3 billion US dollars. How many people employed in Instagram? 13 people. 13, right? So you can see the potential, the crisis, the opportunity. Here's what we've done in Rappler that we like. And it's not just Rappler, it is anyone who takes their activities in the virtual world, right? Look at this one on top. The tweet or the post. Tweet using hashtag 2030now, hashtag hack society. When you tweet, whatever you write will have an emotion, right? that emotion will travel through your social networks. And that social network, social media, Rupert talked to you about the power of social media, but social media is nothing but your family and friends without boundaries of time and space. So social media are your family and friends on steroids. So when you tweet with that emotion, traveling on social networks, it then reaches down and impacts reality. I say this all the time. The movie Inception, social media is the dream world that impacts and changes behavior in the real world. It changes behavior in the real world. What have we seen in Rappler? Here's an experiment for you. Agos, which is done in collaboration, Rina is here somewhere, with Ibayanihan. Agos Ibayanihan is a disaster risk reduction platform. It actually is now being used by the government to help crowdsource information and calls for help. This is how we made it happen. And it wasn't us, it was you. It was our community. You take a social media campaign, build awareness, create interest, and the funnel goes down, increase engagement, develop commitment, and then we have our community. Most of you here have been with us for the last 5 years. Thank you for building that community of action. Now, let's take it. It goes to the negative end as well, right? This is the positive things we can do to impact our world. Here's the part where it becomes a little bit more dangerous. What's changed since last year to this year, since 2012 until now, is that social media, which has the potential to grow you exponentially, also has the potential to spread anger and hatred as well as inspiration. And this is something that we've seen in the last elections. It was the most engaged election we've ever had, but it was also the most violent, vicious, and full of hatred. It is us doing it. How do we stop that? Look at this one. If you remember this is the UP Los Baños student. A Facebook page was set up, basically asking him to, threatening him with death, right? Threatening murder. And this one, you can see here, the spreading of the phone number, harassment at the physical level. So these are things that are also the negative aspect of it. So as we see the positive, we deal with the negative. What are the things, that wisdom of the crowd that we've talked about for 5 years? Well, it can turn into a lynch mob like that very fast. And we've got to stop it. It's this community that'll do that. So here's the danger that we see, and you'll see this talked about in the rest of the day. This is a corporate Black Ops campaign on Twitter, where fake accounts and bots, now it's machines and people working together to basically mislead others and rope off a community. So this is a classic communist plot, ring the city from the countryside, right? The target of hashtag smart free internet were these millennials in the center, and the bots and fake accounts essentially roped them off. Our real world is being controlled by some of the things that are happening in the virtual world. It is impactful. Today you'll hear from Leandro about energy and the exponential growth of energy. You'll hear from Secretary Briones about education and how we need to rethink, reinvent our educational system. You'll hear from a panel about the impact of technology on public debate. Are you safe? Do you feel safe on social media? What kind of civic engagement can we have? Can we leapfrog development for our country, which I hope is the end goal? And finally, you'll hear how all of this impacts systems of governments, not just in the Philippines, but all around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an amazing time. Don't let it go by you. When you look back 10 years from now, you're going to say, I wish I did something then. The future is now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria.